My beloved child, pause for breath, because what is unfolding right now is not random, not delayed, and not meant for someone else. On January 20th, Archangel Michael says God is trying to speak to you right now. If you ignore this, heaven will go completely silent. Don't believe me? Go on and skip. The challenge itself is the sign. Heaven is watching what you choose in this very moment. Listen closely. This message did not arrive by accident. You did not stumble upon it. There was a gentle but urgent movement in the spiritual realm that guided you here. Archangel Michael stands as a messenger of truth, not to frighten you, but to awaken you. There are moments when God whispered, and there are moments when He waits to see if you will listen without being forced. January 20th is one of those moments. You may feel a strange tension in your chest right now. Not fear, recognition. Something inside you knows this is serious. Heaven is not silent because God has nothing to say. Heaven becomes silent when the message has been offered again and again, and the heart keeps turning away. This is not punishment. This is consequence. Silence is what follows ignored instruction. Archangel Michael is revealing something important. God has been trying to get your attention in subtle ways. Through delays, through interruptions, through dreams you couldn't explain, through people who suddenly disappeared from your life, through doors that closed even when you prayed they would stay open. None of that was random. Those were words without sound. January 20th marks a spiritual intersection. One path leads to clarity, protection, and divine alignment. The other leads to confusion that feels like quiet, because when heaven stops correcting, guiding, nudging, that silence can feel peaceful at first. But it is not peace. It is distance. Hear this carefully. Ignoring God does not make life louder. It makes life quieter in the most dangerous way. Decisions stop being corrected. Warnings stop arriving. Convictions fade. And people often mistake that for freedom. Archangel Michael is stepping forward now because there is something specific God wants you to know, and time matters. Not because God is impatient, but because the season is. There is an open window right now that will not remain open forever. You have prayed before God, speak to me clearly. This is clarity. It just didn't arrive the way you expected. You may be thinking, if this were really God, it would sound softer, kinder, less urgent. But urgency does not cancel love. A parent shouts when a child is near danger, not because they are angry, but because silence would cost too much. There is a decision you have been postponing, a truth you have been avoiding, a conversation you keep delaying. You know exactly what it is. Every time you get close to addressing it, distractions multiply. Fatigue sets in. Doubt grows louder. That is not coincidence. That is resistance. Archangel Michael is not here to condemn you. He is here to guard what still can be protected. He is here because heaven still wants to speak, but it will not shout forever. Do not misunderstand this message. God is not threatening you with abandonment. He is revealing a spiritual law. What is consistently ignored eventually withdraws. Not out of anger, but out of respect for your choice. Right now, heaven is leaning toward you. There is instruction waiting, direction waiting, blessing waiting, but all of it requires one thing: your attention. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to feel perfect faith. You don't need to have your life together. You only need to stay present, to listen instead of scroll, to pause instead of dismiss, to receive instead of challenge. You may have noticed how the title itself dared you to skip. That was intentional. Because the test is not belief, it is posture. Will you lean in, or will you turn away when truth knocks without permission? Archangel Michael says this moment is fragile. Powerful, but fragile. Treat it lightly, and it passes. Honor it, and it opens into something much bigger than you expect. God is not finished speaking, but He is watching what you do with this moment. January 20th is marked, not on a calendar, but in the spirit. Stay with this. Something is about to be revealed that explains why your life has felt paused, why answers have been delayed, and why certain patterns keep repeating. This is not the end of the message. This is the threshold. If you are still here, it means heaven is still speaking. Chosen one, let your spirit settle as you continue listening, because what unfolds now goes deeper than warning. It moves into recognition. You are not here by chance. The reason this message still holds your attention is because something within you remembers God's voice, even if you feel distant from it right now. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity in moments like this, not to overwhelm you, but to steady you. January 20th is not just a date you pass through. It is a moment that passes through you. There is a reason your heart has felt restless lately. You may have tried to distract yourself, stay busy, keep moving, but the stillness keeps finding you. That stillness is not emptiness. It is space God created so He could speak without competition. When noise fades, truth becomes unavoidable. Heaven is not asking for perfection from you. Heaven is asking for permission. Archangel Michael reveals that many people miss divine instruction not because they are rebellious, but because they are exhausted. You have carried too much alone for too long. You have learned to survive without answers, to function without clarity, to smile while feeling disconnected. But survival is not the same as alignment. God is calling you out of survival mode and back into relationship. January 20th marks a turning of spiritual volume. Either you lean in and hear more clearly, or you continue, as before, and mistake the quiet for peace. Silence can feel comfortable when you are tired, but comfort is not always confirmation. Sometimes silence is simply the absence of direction. There is something God has already shown you that you have been postponing. Not because you doubt God, but because you fear what obedience might cost you. You worry about what will change if you finally say yes. Who might leave? What might fall apart? What version of yourself you might have to release? Archangel Michael wants you to understand this. Delay does not protect you from loss. It only postpones information. Heaven has been patient with you. Signs were gentle at first. A feeling you couldn't shake. A repeated thought. A verse that followed you everywhere. When those went unanswered, the signs became clearer. Patterns broke. Plans failed. Certain paths became uncomfortable. Not to punish you, but to redirect you. Right now, God is closer than you think. Not watching from a distance, not waiting to judge, but standing at the door of your attention. And attention is the key. When you give God your attention, direction follows. When attention is withheld, confusion grows. Archangel Michael speaks of protection that activates only when instruction is followed. There are blessings prepared for you that cannot reach you where you are standing now. They exist on the other side of obedience. That does not mean obedience is easy. It means it is worth it. You may be wondering why this feels so personal, why every word feels aimed directly at you. It is because God speaks specifically, not generally. He knows your questions. He knows your hesitation. He knows the private conversations you have with yourself late at night when no one else is listening. This is not about fear of heaven going silent. It is about understanding the value of a moment. Some moments shape years. Some decisions echo longer than you expect. January 20th is one of those moments because it carries an invitation, not a threat. As you continue listening, take a second to respond outwardly to what is happening inwardly. If this message is resonating with you, let that agreement be visible. Like this video so this message can reach others who need to hear it. Share it with someone who hath been feeling spiritually disconnected but doesn't know how to say it. Leave a comment declaring that you are listening and open. Subscribe to this channel and become part of this growing community where God's voice is honored, not ignored. If you feel led, explore joining the membership so you stay connected to messages like this without interruption. These actions are not about a platform. They are about alignment and participation. Archangel Michael reminds you that when you publicly acknowledge what God is doing privately, spiritual clarity increases. Light grows when it is shared. And sometimes, your simple action becomes someone else's confirmation. There is more unfolding. The next revelation explains why certain cycles in your life have refused to break, and what God is asking you to release so that heaven's voice does not fade, but becomes stronger than ever. Hold on, because what comes next connects everything you've been feeling but couldn't explain. Stay present. This is where understanding begins. Beloved soul, there is a shift happening now as these words reach you, because revelation always carries weight. What you are sensing is not imagination. It is the moment when truth begins to settle instead of hover. Archangel Michael is not only warning you about silence, he is unveiling why certain cycles in your life have refused to break. This is where many people turn away, not because they do not believe, but because they are afraid of what clarity will require. You have been asking God for change, but at the same time, you have been protecting what feels familiar. Heaven has shown you the pattern more than once. The same kind of disappointment. The same emotional wall. The same door opening and closing with a different face but the same ending. This is not bad luck. This is an unresolved instruction. Archangel Michael reveals that some cycles remain because they are guardians of a lesson. They do not break until the lesson is acknowledged. God has already spoken about this area of your life, but the message came wrapped in discomfort, so it was postponed. Yet postponed truth does not disappear. It waits. January 20th is not just about listening, it is about responding. God is asking you to release one specific attachment. Not everything. Just one. It could be an identity you outgrew, a relationship sustained by history rather than purpose, or a version of yourself that survived pain, but no longer fits your future. Letting go feels like loss at first, but it is actually alignment. Archangel Michael stands as a protector at this crossing because obedience attracts resistance. When you step toward clarity, old habits fight to remain relevant. Doubt gets louder. Fear presents itself as logic. Comfort disguises itself as wisdom. But hear this clearly, what feels safe is not always what is sacred. You may have noticed how quiet certain prayers became. Not unanswered, quiet. That was not heaven ignoring you. That was heaven waiting for you to respond to what was already said. God does not repeat instructions endlessly, not because he is harsh, but because he honors your free will. Right now, something is being unlocked. The moment you inwardly agree with this truth, spiritual clarity increases. You do not need to announce it out loud. Heaven hears agreement even when it is silent. But heaven also responds when agreement becomes action. Archangel Michael says that protection is repositioning around you. Not behind you, not ahead of you, but around you. That means the next step matters. Delay weakens clarity. Movement strengthens it. You do not need the full map. You only need the next step you already know. This is the moment where many feel a tightening in their chest or a heaviness lifting from their shoulders. Both are signs of decision forming. Do not rush. Do not resist. Just allow truth to land fully. And now, receive this as a prophetic activation. Type "I receive divine clarity" in the comments if this message is speaking directly to your spirit. Lesson code 914 has just been released over those who choose obedience over comfort. I am speaking to you personally now. If this message has reached you, it is because God trusts you to help carry it further. Every seed you sow into this mission becomes light for someone who is still walking in confusion. Scripture declares that when you cast your bread upon the waters, it returns multiplied. This is not a donation. This is a prophetic response. I am inviting you to act now. Support this work through Super Thanks or by joining the membership. And if you feel led, use the PayPal link in the description. Your giving releases oil into this stream so more souls can hear what heaven is saying before silence sets in. I speak blessing over every giver right now. May your obedience unlock provision. May your generosity open doors. And may your seed return as clarity, protection, and peace. Do not delay what God is prompting. Move now, and let heaven respond. What comes next will explain how to discern God's voice clearly so you never mistake silence again. Stay with this. The revelation is still unfolding. Faithful one, as this message continues, the atmosphere shifts from revelation into instruction. This is where understanding becomes practical, where what you feel must turn into how you live. Archangel Michael now draws your attention to something many overlook: the difference between God's silence and God's stillness. They are not the same, and confusing them has cost you clarity in the past. Stillness is when God is present and inviting you closer. Silence is when instruction has already been given and ignored. The danger is not that God stops speaking suddenly, but that the soul grows unfamiliar with his tone. When that happens, even when God whispers again, it feels distant. That is why discernment matters now more than ever. You have asked before, how do I know if it is really God? Archangel Michael answers this gently but firmly. God's voice does not compete with chaos. It carries weight, not noise. It may challenge you, but it never confuses you. When something repeatedly pulls you toward truth, integrity, healing, or surrender, that is not coincidence. That is alignment. What often drowns out God's voice is not sin, but saturation. Too many opinions. Too many influences. Too many voices telling you who you should be, how fast you should move, and what success should look like. Your spirit was never designed to process that much noise. Heaven speaks best when space is created. This is why God hath been reducing certain things in your life. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Fewer people. Fewer distractions. Less emotional noise. At times it felt lonely. At times it felt unfair. But reduction is often the evidence of refinement. Gold is never refined in crowds. Archangel Michael reveals that one of the clearest signs God is speaking to you is repetition with purpose. The same message arriving through different forms. A phrase you hear multiple times. A conviction that returns even after you ignore it. God repeats what matters because he knows what resists change. You must also understand this. God's voice often arrives before comfort does. Peace usually follows obedience, not precedes it. If you wait to feel ready, you may wait forever. Readiness is built by movement, not certainty. There is a reason fear has been presenting itself as caution lately. Fear loves to sound responsible. It tells you to wait, to delay, to gather more information. Wisdom invites patience, but fear demands stagnation. Archangel Michael urges you to examine what voice hath been guiding your pauses. God is not asking you to leap blindly. He is asking you to trust what He has already shown you. You already know the step. You just want reassurance that it will not hurt. But growth always stretches before it stabilizes. Another way God speaks is through conviction that brings life, not shame. Shame pushes you into hiding. Conviction invites you into correction. If what you feel is drawing you closer to truth rather than away from it, heaven is involved. You may notice that when you ignore God's nudges, restlessness increases. Sleep feels shallow. Distractions stop working. Joy feels delayed. That is not punishment. That is the soul signaling misalignment. The spirit reacts when it is pulled away from its source. Archangel Michael wants you to hear this clearly. God is not distant right now. He is intentional. He is precise. He is watching how you steward what you already know. New instruction is unlocked by obedience to old instruction. This is also why comparison has been draining you. You were never meant to measure your pace against someone else's calling. Their instruction is not yours. Your silence is not your silence. God speaks uniquely because purpose is personal. As you move forward, create intentional moments of quiet. Let empty quiet, but attentive quiet. Put aside the noise even briefly. Ask God one direct question and wait without multitasking. Heaven responds to focus. You are learning discernment not so you can hear God once, but so you can recognize Him consistently. Silence only becomes dangerous when awareness fades. Right now, awareness is increasing. Archangel Michael stands watch as you learn this, guarding you from deception and distraction. You are not late. You are not abandoned. You are being trained. What comes next will uncover how obedience shifts timelines and why delays you once resented were actually protection. Stay attentive. The message is building, and your clarity is closer than you think. Chosen vessel, as this message deepens, Archangel Michael now draws your attention to something you once misunderstood: delay. For a long time, you believed delay meant denial, or worse, disapproval. But heaven sees delay differently. Delay is often protection disguised as waiting. It is God stepping in before you walk into something you were not yet ready to carry. There were moments you felt frustrated with God because doors did not open when you expected them to. You prayed, prepared, and positioned yourself, yet nothing moved. What you could not see then was what God was keeping you from. Certain outcomes would have overwhelmed you. Certain successes would have exposed you. Certain relationships would have collapsed you emotionally if they had arrived too soon. Archangel Michael reveals that obedience does not always accelerate timelines. Sometimes it preserves them. God was shaping your capacity while you were questioning His timing. Strength was forming quietly. Discernment was sharpening without applause. Character was being built when you thought nothing was happening. You must understand this clearly. God is not slow. He is exact. Every season has weight, and releasing something too early can damage both the gift and the receiver. Delay is mercy when readiness is incomplete. Think back to moments you were upset that something did not work out. You may now see how those closed doors saved you from pain you were not prepared to endure. Heaven saw further. Heaven always does. And Archangel Michael stood guard during those moments, even when you felt unprotected. There is also a deeper reason for delay that few acknowledge: alignment. God does not just prepare you, He prepares environments, people, and timing to meet you. You were not only being prepared for what was coming was being prepared for you. Right now, many of the delays you once resented are dissolving. Not because time has passed, but because understanding has arrived. Clarity accelerates what confusion slows down. When you finally agree with heaven, movement resumes. Archangel Michael says that some of your prayers were answered with not yet because the version of you that asked was not the version that could steward the answer. Growth changes capacity, and capacity determines access. You may feel a strange mix of gratitude and grief right now. Gratitude for what you were spared from. Grief for time you believe was lost. Hear this truth: nothing surrendered to God is ever wasted. Seasons of waiting become foundations, not voids. God is also correcting how you measure progress. You often look for visible change, but heaven looks for internal alignment. When the heart shifts, the path shifts. You are closer than you realize because you are finally aligned with what God had been saying all along. Another reason delay occurs is to expose motive. God cares not just about what you want, but why you want it. When motives are purified, blessings no longer become burdens. Delay removes what would corrupt the gift. Archangel Michael speaks now about patience that is not passive. Waiting with God is active. He is listening, adjusting, refining. It is not sitting still, it is staying surrender. That kind of waiting produces authority, not frustration. Here is something significant approaching that requires the maturity you now carry. Had it arrived earlier, it would have crushed you. Now, it will grow you. That is the difference timing makes. You may also notice that certain temptations no longer appeal to you the way they once did. That is evidence of growth. Heaven removes desires that would derail destiny. This is not loss. This is freedom. Archangel Michael assures you that nothing God has promised you has expired. Promises do not decay in heaven. They wait, and they are released when alignment, readiness, and obedience meet. As you reflect on this, allow gratitude to replace resentment. Gratitude unlocks movement. Resentment resists it. Thank God even for what you did not understand at the time. That act alone shifts spiritual posture. What is coming next will address how to respond when God finally accelerates what was delayed, and how to stay aligned when momentum returns. Stay attentive. The season is changing, and you are prepared to move with it. Precious one, the pace now begins to change, and Archangel Michael wants you to be ready for what happens when God accelerates what was once delayed. Many people pray for movement, but few are prepared for the responsibility that comes with it. Acceleration is not chaos. It is alignment catching up with time. And when it happens, it requires discernment more than excitement. You may already feel it. Things that once took effort are starting to flow. Conversations feel timely. Ideas come with clarity. Opportunities appear without force. This is not coincidence. This is momentum released because obedience has matured. But momentum must be stewarded carefully, or it can become overwhelming. Archangel Michael warns that when God speeds things up, the enemy often tries to rush you. There is a difference between divine acceleration and human urgency. Divine acceleration feels grounded even when it moves fast. Urgency feels pressured, anxious, and frantic. Learn to tell the difference, because not every fast door is a God door. This is where many stumble. They mistake speed for confirmation. But God's movement always carries peace, even when it stretches you. If something demands you abandon your values, compromise your integrity, or ignore discernment just to keep up, it is not from heaven. You are entering a phase where discernment must stay sharp. Old distractions may resurface, not because they still belong to you, but because they want relevance again. Familiar voices may try to pull you back into patterns God already freed you from. This is not regression. It is a test of stability. Archangel Michael stands firm here, guarding your focus. He reminds you that clarity is maintained by consistency. The same practices that helped you hear God in the waiting will help you hear Him in the movement. You not abandon prayer because life gets busy. You not neglect stillness because progress feels exciting. Another challenge of acceleration is comparison. When things finally move for you, others may notice. Opinions increase. Advice multiplies. Some will celebrate you, others will question your timing. Remember this: people only see the movement, not the years of preparation behind it. Their perception does not define your obedience. God is also teaching you to move without announcing everything. Some blessings grow best in quiet. Not everyone needs access to what God is building in you. Protection often looks like privacy. Archangel Michael also reveals that acceleration exposes areas that still need refinement. Weak foundations crack under pressure. That is not failure, that is feedback. God corrects quickly in accelerated seasons because growth is happening faster. Receive correction without defensiveness. It is proof of investment. You may notice your tolerance for certain behaviors decreasing. What you once overlooked now unsettles you. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. As God elevates you, He also sharpens your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are guardians. This is also a season to celebrate progress without idolizing it. Gratitude keeps acceleration healthy. Pride destabilizes it. Acknowledge what God is doing, but stay dependent on Him. Momentum sustained by humility lasts longer. Right now, take a moment to anchor yourself in this journey outwardly as well. If this message is helping you grow, take action. Like this video so the message can travel further. Share it with someone who is entering a season of change and needs discernment. Leave a comment declaring that you are ready to steward acceleration wisely. Subscribe to this channel so you remain connected as these messages continue unfolding. If you feel drawn, joining the membership helps you stay grounded and supported as you move forward. These actions are not interruptions, they are affirmation. Before you drift away, stay with this moment, because what comes next explains how to recognize divine confirmation so you do not miss what God is sealing right now. This is where many misunderstand the signs. Keep listening. The clarity is about to deepen even more. Beloved one, now that movement has begun, Archangel Michael turns your attention to confirmation. This is where many people stumble, not because God is unclear, but because they expect confirmation to arrive in only one form. Heaven confirms in layers, not flashes. And when you learn to recognize those layers, confidence replaces confusion. Confirmation does not always come as a dramatic sign. Sometimes it comes as peace that remains even after fear speaks. Sometimes it comes as alignment between what God spoke and what unfolds naturally. Other times it comes as resistance losing its power over you. These are not small indicators. They are spiritual signatures. You have been conditioned to look for external proof before trusting internal clarity. But God often confirms inwardly first, then outwardly later. If you wait for everything to make sense before you move, you may miss the moment entirely. Faith is not blindness. It is trust informed by relationship. Archangel Michael reveals that one of the clearest confirmations is consistency. When God is behind something, it does not require manipulation to sustain it. You do not have to chase it, defend it endlessly, or force others to understand it. What is God-led carries its own stability. Pay attention to what no longer drains you. When something is aligned, effort does not exhaust the soul the same way. That does not mean it is easy, but it is life-giving. You finish tired but fulfilled, stretched but steady. That balance is rare outside of God's will. Another form of confirmation is correction that comes quickly and gently. When God is guiding you closely, He does not let you wander far. Redirection arrives early. Conviction feels clear, not condemning. If you notice that you are being adjusted without being shamed, heaven is actively involved. Archangel Michael also speaks about confirmation through closed doors. Not every no is rejection. Some are protection, others are refinement. When a door closes but peace remains, that closure is confirmation that you were spared, not denied. You may also notice that certain prayers are no longer necessary. You stop asking God to remove things He already removed from your desire. Old cravings fade. Old fears lose authority. This internal shift confirms that transformation is real, not imagined. Be cautious of chasing signs instead of listening for instruction. Signs follow obedience. They are not substitutes for it. When you obey what you know, God confirms what you need. When you demand confirmation first, obedience weakens. Archangel Michael warns against spiritual impatience disguised as faith. Wanting reassurance is natural, but demanding constant proof can reveal insecurity rather than trust. God confirms enough to guide you, not enough to control you. Another confirmation comes through fruit. Not applause, not attention, but impact. Are you becoming more honest, more grounded, more compassionate, more discerning? These fruits speak louder than external success. God prioritizes internal fruit before public reward. You may find that people begin responding differently to you. Some are drawn closer, others pull away. This is not rejection, it is sorting. Alignment changes proximity. Not everyone can walk with you into your next season, and that is not a failure. Archangel Michael reassures you that uncertainty does not mean absence. Even prophets questioned at times. What matters is that doubt does not become disobedience. You can move forward while still asking questions. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is movement despite them. Learn to check confirmation against character. God will never confirm something that requires you to become less loving, less honest, or less humble. If a path feeds ego but stars integrity, it is not from heaven. Also understand this. Confirmation often comes after the step, not before it. Once you move, clarity increases. Once you obey, peace deepens. Once you release, provision appears. God responds to motion aligned with trust. Archangel Michael stands as witness here. He is not only guarding your path, He is sharpening your discernment. You are learning to hear God without panic, to move without pressure, to trust without obsession. As this awareness settles, allow yourself to breathe. You are not behind. You are not confused. You are becoming fluent in a language you once only recognized faintly. What unfolds next will address how to remain grounded when confirmation becomes visible and others begin to notice the change in you. Stay attentive. Humility will be your anchor in what is coming. Anointed one, as confirmation becomes visible and the change within you can no longer be hidden, Archangel Michael now speaks about grounding. This is a delicate season, because visibility tests humility, and progress tests surrender. When God begins to elevate you, attention follows, both spiritual and human. How you remain rooted determines how long you rise. You may have already noticed it. People are responding to you differently. Some suddenly respect you. Others question you. A few may distance themselves without explanation. This is not because you have changed into someone unrecognizable, but because alignment exposes contrast. Light does not argue with darkness. It simply reveals it. Archangel Michael reminds you that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Elevation does not require self-promotion. God announces what He establishes. When you feel the urge to explain yourself excessively, pause. What is truly from God does not need constant defense. One of the greatest dangers in visible seasons is spiritual independence. When things begin to work, prayer can quietly shrink. Gratitude can become assumption. Dependence can shift into confidence in self rather than confidence in God. This is where many drift without realizing it. Remain grounded by remembering where clarity came from. It was not your strength alone. It was surrender. It was obedience when no one was watching. Return often to that posture. Private devotion sustains public impact. Archangel Michael also speaks about discernment with access. Not everyone who applauds you deserves proximity. Some people celebrate what you carry but cannot steward closeness to it. Guard your inner circle carefully. Protection in this season looks like boundaries that are loving but firm. You may feel a pull to help everyone, fix everything, explain every truth. Resist that urge. Even Jesus withdrew often. Availability without discernment leads to burnout. God never asked you to be everything to everyone. He asked you to be faithful where you are planted. As momentum grows, temptation may appear dressed as opportunity. Not every invitation is an assignment. Not every open door is aligned. Archangel Michael urges you to pause before saying yes too quickly. Ask not only, "Is this good?" but "Is this God?" Another grounding force is gratitude expressed consistently. Gratitude recalibrates the heart. It reminds you that progress is a gift, not an entitlement. Thank God not only for what is increasing, but for what remains unchanged and stable. You may also experience moments of spiritual fatigue. Growth requires energy. Visibility carries responsibility. When tiredness appears, do not interpret it as failure. Rest is not retreat, it is strategy. Even angels move in shifts. Archangel Michael reassures you that God is not testing you to make you fall, but to make you firm. Grace reveal the posture. Stay teachable. Stay aware. Stay anchored. Now, receive this prophetic activation as this phase seals itself. Type "I stand grounded" in God in the comments if you receive this word with humility and strength. Blessing code 1184 is now released over those who remain rooted while rising. I am speaking to you personally. If this message has anchored you, it is because God trusts you to help anchor others. When you sow into this work, you are placing oil into the lamp so light does not go out for someone still searching in the dark. Scripture declares that those who water others will themselves be watered. I am calling you to act now. Support this mission through Super Thanks, or step into deeper covering by joining the membership. If you are led, use the PayPal donation link in the description. Your giving is not ordinary. It is a prophetic act of partnership. I speak blessing over every seed sown. May your roots go deeper. May your stability increase. And may God establish you in every place He lifts you. Do not delay obedience. Move now, and let heaven respond. What comes next will reveal how God protects what He elevates and why certain battles fade as authority increases. Stay with this. The journey is not finished, and clarity is still unfolding. Beloved of God, as you remain grounded while rising, Archangel Michael now turns your attention to something subtle but powerful: protection through authority. Many people think protection always looks like battles being fought, prayers being shouted, or enemies being confronted. But when authority increases, many battles simply stop showing up. This is not because opposition disappears, but because it recognizes a higher rank. You may have noticed recently that some struggles that once consumed you no longer have the same grip. Thoughts that used to spiral now lose momentum. Situations that once provoked fear now feel manageable. This is not emotional numbness. This is spiritual authority beginning to take root. Archangel Michael reveals that authority is not given to impress others, it is given to preserve what God has established. When God elevates you, He also assigns boundaries around you. Some attacks are prevented before you ever become aware of them. Some conflicts dissolve before they form. This is invisible protection. However, authority also requires responsibility. You cannot walk in new authority while feeding old reactions. God is teaching you to respond instead of react. Reaction gives power away. Response keeps authority intact. Silence at the right time can be stronger than explanation. There will be moments when you are tempted to defend yourself unnecessarily, to clarify your intentions, to correct misunderstandings. Archangel Michael urges you to pause. Ask whether this moment requires response or restraint. Authority does not rush to be understood. It rests in alignment. As your authority grows, you may notice fewer dramatic spiritual experiences, but more consistent peace. Do not mistake this for stagnation. God often replaces intensity with stability as maturity increases. Fire refines early, oil sustains long-term. Another sign of protection through authority is discernment in conflict. You are learning which battles are assignments and which are distractions. Not every challenge requires engagement. Some require distance. Some require prayer. Some require nothing at all. Archangel Michael also speaks about spiritual warfare changing form. Earlier seasons required resistance. This season requires wisdom. The enemy's goal is no longer to stop you but to tire you. Overcommitment is a subtle attack. Burnout is rarely sudden. It is accumulated. Guard your energy. Authority is maintained by stewardship, not striving. Rest is no longer optional. It is strategic. God protects what He elevates, but you must cooperate with that protection. You may also feel less emotional attachment to chaos. Drama feels heavy now. Confusion feels foreign. This is evidence of transformation. Your spirit no longer feeds on what once felt normal. As authority increases, God also refines your speech. Words carry more weight now. What you say can build or burden others more than before. Choose language carefully. Speak life, not just truth. Authority without compassion becomes intimidation. Archangel Michael reminds you that humility keeps authority clean. Pride contaminates it quickly. Stay teachable. Stay prayerful. Stay aware that everything you carry flows from grace, not effort. There may be moments when you feel lonely at this level. Not isolated, but misunderstood. Few people relate to your perspective. This is normal. Authority changes vantage point. Do not retreat into isolation. Seek alignment instead. God is also protecting you by closing access to certain environments. Places that once felt exciting may now feel draining. Conversations that once felt stimulating may now feel shallow. This is not judgment. It is discernment. You are being trained to move quietly, but firmly. To lead without noise. To influence without force. This is mature authority. Archangel Michael assures you that heaven is attentive to how you carry what you have been given. Authority grows when it is stewarded well. Misused authority shrinks quickly. Stay anchored in prayer, not performance. As this settles, know this: you are not becoming hardened. You are becoming established. Established roots do not shake easily. Established authority does not need to announce itself. What unfolds next will address how God restores what was lost in earlier seasons and why restoration often looks different than expectation. Stay present. The story is still being written, and heaven is not silent. Chosen one, as authority settles and protection surrounds you, Archangel Michael now reveals a truth many struggle to accept. Restoration rarely looks like rewind. God does not rebuild your future by recreating your past. He restores by redeeming what was lost and reintroducing it in a new form, at the right time, with the right capacity inside you. You may still grieve certain losses, opportunities that vanished, relationships that ended abruptly, seasons that closed without explanation. Even now, you might wonder why God allowed some things to break when you prayed so hard for them to last. Restoration does not deny the pain of loss, but it reframes its purpose. Archangel Michael explains that some things were removed not because they were bad, but because they were incomplete. God saw where they would eventually lead, and He intervened before damage became permanent. Restoration means you receive again, but not in a way that would harm you. This is why what returns often looks different. The blessing carries more wisdom. The relationship comes with boundaries. The opportunity arrives with responsibility. You are not getting a replacement. You are receiving an upgrade shaped by growth. You may have expected God to restore exactly what you lost, but exact restoration would place you back into a version of yourself that no longer exists. God restores according to who you have become, not who you were. Archangel Michael also reveals that restoration is layered. Some parts return emotionally first: peace, confidence, self-respect. Others return practically: provision, direction, stability. Do not rush the process. Each layer supports the next. There is something important to understand here. Bitterness blocks restoration. Not because God withholds, but because bitterness distorts perception. When resentment lingers, blessings arrive but feel unfamiliar or unworthy. Release what you cannot change so you can receive what God is sending. You may notice that certain prayers you once cried over no longer hurt the same way. That is healing. Healing is restoration in its quietest form. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself when old wounds stop reacting. Archangel Michael wants you to know that God is not compensating you. He's completing you. Restoration is not about giving you back what was taken. It is about making you whole so nothing missing controls you anymore. This is also a season where God restores trust, especially trust in Him. You may have believed intellectually before, but now trust is becoming experiential. You see patterns make sense. You recognize protection in hindsight. You understand why waiting mattered. As restoration unfolds, be careful not to measure it against others' outcomes. Their restoration will look different. Comparison blinds gratitude. Gratitude sharpens vision. Celebrate what God is doing in you, even if it looks quieter than expected. Archangel Michael also warns that restoration attracts distraction. When God begins rebuilding, old voices may resurface. Old doubts may whisper. Old temptations may knock. Not because they belong, but because they want access again. Discernment protects restoration. This is the moment to stay connected and intentional. If this message is restoring clarity in you, respond actively. Like this video so this word can reach others who feel broken but hopeful. Share it with someone who thinks restoration has passed them by. Leave a comment declaring that God is restoring you in His way and His time. Subscribe to this channel so you continue receiving messages that strengthen and steady you. If you feel drawn, joining the membership keeps you connected during seasons when restoration requires consistency, not just inspiration. Hold on, because what comes next is where everything converges. The final understanding will reveal why heaven warned you about silence in the first place, and how to ensure God's voice never fades again. This is where it all comes together. Stay with this, beloved child. As restoration settles into place, Archangel Michael now brings your attention back to the core of everything you have heard so far, the voice of God. This is where the warning about heaven going silent finds its deepest meaning. Silence is not sudden. It is gradual. It begins when familiarity replaces reverence, when instruction becomes optional, and when obedience is delayed until it feels convenient. You must understand this clearly. God's voice does not disappear because He withdraws love. It fades when relationship is replaced by routine. Many people lose clarity not because God stopped speaking, but because they stopped treating His voice as sacred. Archangel Michael reveals that intimacy with God must be maintained intentionally. You cannot live on yesterday's encounters and expect today's guidance. What sustained you in one season will not automatically sustain you in the next. Growth requires renewal. There were moments earlier in your life when hearing God felt easier. Not because you were more spiritual, but because you were more dependent. Dependence sharpens listening. Independence dulls it. As God strengthens you, He also watches how you steward that strength. One of the greatest dangers now is spiritual autopilot. Doing the right things without listening for fresh instruction. Saying the right words without checking the posture of your heart. Heaven responds to humility, not habit. Archangel Michael warns that disobedience does not always look like rebellion. Sometimes it looks like partial obedience, delayed obedience, selective obedience, doing what God said but not how He said it, or not when He said it. These small compromises slowly lower spiritual volume. God is not interested in controlling you. He is interested in leading you. Leadership requires attention. When attention drifts, direction becomes unclear. This is why God keeps calling you back to stillness, even in seasons of momentum. You are entering a phase where God wants conversation, not crisis-driven prayer. He does not want you to only seek Him when something is wrong. He wants to be included when things are going well. Silence often begins when God is treated as a solution rather than a companion. Archangel Michael speaks gently here. Do not confuse blessing with approval. Just because things are working does not mean alignment should be assumed. Blessings are gifts. Guidance is relationship. Never trade one for the other. Another way silence creeps in is through distraction masked as productivity. Being busy for God is not the same as being led by God. Activity without intimacy eventually leads to exhaustion and confusion. God's voice is clearest when activity flows from instruction, not pressure. Pay attention to how God corrects you now. Correction is proof of closeness. If you stop sensing conviction, pause and check alignment. God corrects those He trusts. Silence follows neglect, not failure. Archangel Michael also reveals that gratitude preserves clarity. When you regularly acknowledge God's involvement, awareness sharpens. When gratitude fades, entitlement grows. Entitlement deafens the spirit. You are being invited into maturity, not distance. Maturity hears God in whispers, not just warnings. It responds to nudges, not just commands. It values alignment over excitement. Heaven does not go silent overnight. It goes quiet when the heart stops listening. Right now, your heart is awake. That is why this message still resonates. That is why conviction feels clear, not condemning. This is the moment to recommit inwardly. Not with fear, but with reverence. Not with pressure, but with intention. Decide now that God's voice will not be background noise in your life. Decide that obedience will be your first response, not your last resort. Archangel Michael stands as witness as you make this decision. He guards the line of communication between heaven and earth, but you must choose to keep it open. Attention keeps it open. Humility keeps it clear. Obedience keeps it alive. What remains now is the sealing, the final release, the confirmation that heaven is not silent and will not be as long as you stay responsive. Stay present. The final word carries weight. My beloved child, this is the sealing moment. Archangel Michael now speaks with final clarity, not as an ending, but as an establishment. Everything you have heard was not meant to inform you. It was meant to position you. Heaven never warned you about silence to frighten you. Heaven warned you because relationship is still open, and God wanted you to understand the weight of responsiveness. Here is the truth being sealed now. God's voice never disappears first. Distance always begins in the human heart, and closeness is always restored the same way it began, through attention, through reverence, through obedience that does not negotiate. You were shown this path step by step so you would understand that silence is not sudden and clarity is not accidental. You have learned that God speaks through conviction, alignment, repetition, peace, and protection. You have learned that delay was mercy, acceleration was preparation, authority was stewardship, and restoration was refinement. None of it was wasted. None of it was random. Archangel Michael reveals that the reason this message had to reach you now is because a new cycle is opening, and cycles are entered by agreement. Heaven does not force access. It responds to posture. What you choose after this message determines how clearly God's voice continues in your life. This is not about perfection. You will still grow. You will still learn. You will still have moments of hesitation. But what changes now is your responsiveness. You will no longer ignore the nudge. You will no longer postpone the instruction. You will no longer confuse comfort with confirmation. God is not asking you to live in fear of silence. He is inviting you to live in awareness of His presence. Silence only becomes final when the heart repeatedly chooses distraction over devotion. Right now, your heart is open. That is why heaven is speaking clearly. Archangel Michael assures you that from this moment forward, sensitivity will increase. You will recognize when something is off more quickly. You will sense when alignment is needed sooner. Correction will come gently and early. Peace will follow obedience faster than before. But hear this carefully, awareness must be maintained. The same way a flame stays alive through oxygen, God's voice stays clear through attention. Guard your quiet moments. Guard your inner posture. Guard your reverence. Do not allow familiarity to dull wonder. You are not leaving this message empty-handed. You are leaving it sealed with instruction and promise. As long as you stay responsive, heaven will not go silent. God will continue to guide, adjust, protect, and confirm. His voice will remain active in your life. This is the final activation, spoken with authority and blessing. Type "I choose to hear God" in the comments if you receive this message fully. Blessing code 2026 is now released over those who choose responsiveness over resistance, obedience over delay, and intimacy over routine. I am speaking to you personally. If this word kept your spirit awake, it is because God wants this voice to reach others before they drift into silence. When you sow into this mission, you are lighting lamps for souls who are still searching for direction. I am calling you to act now, not later. Support this work through super thanks, step into deeper partnership through membership, or use the PayPal donation link in the description. This is not charity, it is obedience. Scripture declares that those who sow into the house of God will never lack direction or provision. I speak blessing over every giver. May heaven stay open over your life, may clarity increase, and may God's voice remain unmistakable in every season. Do not hesitate. Respond now, and let heaven respond to you.